A very good evening to you. I'm Mr. Lord, and in our news, 2 pieces of legislation passed to deal with money laundering and terrorist financing. Prime Minister Motley on an overseas tour drumming up support for the development of Barbados. Social media support for the gun amnesty. The Oystons Fish Festival gets a name change, and in sports, Dre Rust's heroics weren't enough this time around to save the Knight Riders from falling through the Super Kings.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC News Night, starting now.
In our top story, government is continuing its quest to keep money laundering and terrorist financing at bay. And at the same time, it is seeking to meet the international standards outlined by the Financial Action Task Force. Earlier today, the Attorney General and Legal Affairs Minister Dale Marshall led off debate on amendments to 2 pieces of legislation. One of them is the Companies Amendment Bill, which now requires that more information be provided about beneficial owners.
What we are now requiring of individuals who have companies, sir, is that at the corporate office, sir, they must now include an up-to-date and accurate record of the basic and beneficial ownership of the company, whether incorporated or registered in Barbados, sir. What is here now in Section 172 is that we must have the latest name, the name and latest known address of the shareholder, a statement of the number of shares and the date on which that person became a shareholder. So this information has to be kept at the registered office.
Well, the lower house also debated the Charity Amendment Bill, and the AG explains more details will be needed about the trustees and the boards.
You now have to provide, or you will now have to provide, the full names, addresses, and occupations and descriptions of the trustees. You will have to provide information on any properties that they own. You also will have to provide information on any applicant, trustee, or beneficiary who has held prominent public office or who has held prominent public office in any international organization.
Well, Tourism Minister Kerry Simmons today voiced his frustration with what he says is the constant changing of the goalpost by international organizations. He says the government has been trying to comply with the requirements, but they keep being moved.
It was in December that we came here and we reduced taxation in this country to 5% and less. Huh? Converge. Yes, converge. We brought the convergence. And then, Mr. Speaker, sir, within weeks, these people tell you that ain't good enough. They still got more to do. And you know, slavery, sir, slavery took on many forms. You could give a man liberty and tell him you are free. But if in your mind, if in your heart of hearts, you believe that you still have a right to control his very existence, he will never be free unless he can emancipate himself from that situation. And we, sir, I believe, must emancipate ourselves.
Well, Opposition Leader Bishop Joseph Atherley has commended the government for the Companies Amendment Bill 2019. Bishop Atherley says the government has a responsibility to protect its integrity by ensuring proper systems are in place which are capable of the requisite checks on businesses which want to set up here in Barbados.
I don't think we're simply responding to pressure from overseas or international institutions. We're also doing what is in our best interests, so to ensure that our corporate culture is as sanitized, or elsewhere I would say as sanctified as it might be. And that must be a principal concern of ours, that those who operate in our corporate space are not so defiled by corrupt practices that they stain our economy. We are already struggling, and that's part of the reality which we face.
A government minister has accused some commercial banks of targeting politicians and the people working with them. The charge has been leveled by Minister of International Business and Industry Ronald Toppin. According to him, some banks are now threatening to close the accounts of those they term politically exposed. Minister Toppin says it's a dangerous practice and wants to know why banks are doing it.
So when you switch your accounts now to another bank, it's only a matter of time before you get a letter from that bank also saying that they will not be handling political accounts. So, Mr. Speaker, where are we supposed to put the money? Where are politicians and branches and so on?
We are not supposed to have money.
we don't have money much at best. But where are we supposed to put the money now when commercial banks decide that we are these outlaws? But that's basically what we're saying. We are outlaws and Perez. We cannot have accounts.
On another issue, Attorney General Dale Marshall says Barbados desperately needs to have new legislation dealing with the prevention of corruption. Speaking in the lower house, the AG says a lot of work has already been done and the administration is hoping to bring that new legislation to Parliament in another 3 months.
It is an embarrassment that in the year 2019 we could be dealing with a piece of legislation which provides that the maximum fine for corrupt acts could be $2,500. That would have been a huge amount of money in 1929, but it is not a huge amount of money today. In fact, it is trifling today, sir.
Mr. Marshall adds that simply increasing the fines of the 90-year-old legislation would not go far enough.
Any person looking at a statute that is now 90 years old would have to immediately believe that they were reading something almost like Chaucer or Shakespeare. The language is different, the syntax is different. The absence of punctuation in places that we would normally put punctuation is glaring. And while that might have suited, sir, 90 years ago, it does not suit Barbados of today. So for me as Attorney General to come to Parliament and just say, I want to increase the fines on that old bill, on that old piece of legislation to $250,000 does not get me where I need to be.
And the Attorney General has also revealed that government will also be setting up a first-of-its-kind anti-corruption agency, which will also require the establishment of its own legislation. Well, Prime Minister Mia Motley is over in Canada on a number of initiatives. Our Lisa Broom joins us now with that story. Good evening, Lisa.
Good evening, Lisa. That's right. And the Prime Minister is in Canada at the invitation of McGill University to discuss the long-standing program at the Bellairs Research Institute. And while there, she met with members of the Barbadian diaspora to try to drum up support for government's policies. One of her stops was a town hall meeting in Montreal.
You yourselves, but your children and your grandchildren, even if born here, because we are Bajans by what as well? By choice and by descent too. And if we can do that, the critical numbers that we need to manage in order to be able to expand the platform base, to create the growth opportunities that we need are all of a sudden there. But it requires decisions by us, and it requires decisions and commitment by you as well.
Well, the Prime Minister updated the diaspora on her government's efforts to improve the country's fiscal situation. And she also provided information on the amended Bail Act, telling those present that Barbados is not accustomed to a lot of murders.
For the most part, our murder rate has been flat, and that's why these gun crimes have been difficult. But we've seen over the last few decades an increase in the presence of guns, and you see it across the world. New Zealand is a place that you would never, ever have thought that something like that would have happened in Christchurch, New Zealand, a few weeks ago. And we see it across too many other parts of the world. Why? Because people have ready access to guns. People always used to fight. People always had fallouts. But before they would use a 2x3, they would use a rock. They might even use a Collins. But they didn't have semi-automatic weapons.
Well, Lisa, Transport, Works and Maintenance Minister Dr. William Duguid is one of those accompanying the Prime Minister, and he invited people in the diaspora to return home next year.
I want to encourage all of you, Barbadians, friends of Barbadians, family of Barbadians, extended families, come home in 2020. Come and make Barbados great again. Come and feel that flutter in your heart when that plane lands, and come and help us put Barbados back on the road.
Minister of Maritime Affairs and the Blue Economy, Kirk Humphrey, is also in the contingent, and he said good governance will assist Barbados out of its current economic situation.
There has never been a time in my lifetime, and as much as I've read, where I feel we can trust the leadership in as much now as we can trust the leadership of the new Prime Minister of Barbados, Ms. Mia Moore-Motley. And I do not say so just because I'm a member of the cabinet, but because I've seen Ms. Motley in her public moments, but also in her private moments, when we were in opposition and now as Prime Minister. And I feel like the country needs to have this kind of leadership, because leadership is what is going to take us out of the mire that we found ourselves in when we came into government.
Well, Lisa, once the Prime Minister wraps up her visit to Canada, she's then going to move over to the U.S. for another series of meetings. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
What's Trending is brought to you by Trident Insurance. We treat you like family.
And Lisa is back, this time in our social media corner, to tell us what is trending.
Good evening, Lisa, and that's right. So here's what's trending today. It's day 3 of the gun amnesty announced last week by Attorney General Dale Marshall, and many, including the Bar Association, have questioned exactly how effective an amnesty will be. Well, the aunt of a young man shot and injured on Sunday is all for it.
But these guys go up and down all the country, and the situation can get worse. It can get worse. Every minute somebody shoot, and for what? It ain't solving the problem. It won't make the jail population more. We're gonna do when you kill a man and go and sit down in jail and just eat and get fat. We just only say when it hit home that we feel it, but that's not the case. Because I'm sure they got a lot of people in Barbados that feel the way I do about this thing. This thing need to stop, or we can lose a lot of children. Daughters, sisters, aunts, nieces, nephews. The only body getting fat here is the undertakers, though.
So that video has been shared thousands of times on since we posted it on Facebook. It's been viewed, that is, thousands of times. Now, many people like Linda Freeman agree with the woman who identified herself as Miss Ford. Larita Zellman believes people should become confidential informants, and if they know for sure someone has a gun or is planning to kill someone, well, they should call the police. And for those concerned about their own safety, well, she says you don't even have to identify yourself. And Iseen Joseph says anyone held with a gun after the amnesty should be locked up for good. And she goes even a step further, saying any lawyer who represents these people should also meet the same fate. Well, news quickly sped yesterday that a plane had crash landed at the Douglas Charles Airport in Dominica. It's believed the accident could have been the result of a problem with the landing gear. Now, this video shows the moment immediately after the incident. Thankfully, though, the 29 passengers and 3 crew members were able to walk off the plane. Now, the airport was expected to reopen around midday today once a team of inspectors from Antigua wrapped up their investigations. But up until about 3 o'clock, it was still closed, leaving dozens of people stranded. And back at home now, we've all heard the saying, if you ain't got a horse, you ride a cow. Well, I'm not really sure if that's what the guy in this video was attempting to do. You take a look and tell me.
Think anyone good, though?
Yeah, I think anyone good. I think it's a horse fly, though.
Now, I'm not sure what is funnier, the man trying to hold a cow or that lady laughing in the background. Anyway, so the next video shows that soca artist Red Plastic Bag not only has fans in the east of Barbados, but in the Middle East as well. right, now that video was taken at a Soca on the Seas cruise, which was at the time off the coast of Abu Dhabi on its way to Bahrain. And that's all the time we have for What's Trending this evening. Of course, you can find us easily on Facebook, Instagram, and by email. So before we go, Lisa, let me ask you this question. As a country girl yourself, that cow being pulled, does that bring back any memories?
I think the worst experience I had was with a sheep.
Let's talk about this off air.
Well, after more than 40 years, one of the island's leading festivals has changed its name. The Oistins Fish Festival will now be known simply as the Oistins Festival this year. Chair of the organizing committee, Tony Thorne, says they have rebranded the festival and have added some new events while keeping some of the old activities.
First of all, we have the mobile cinema, which is on Good Friday in conjunction with the U.S. Embassy. We also have standard celebrity cook-off with a lot of names that you may know, such as TC, Nikita Nicole, Faith, Kenny McDowell. We also have Kurt Brown and many more in those competitions. We also have on Saturday, this Saturday, we have an Easter bonnet workshop that is being done with the facilitation of the NCF, and that would then roll into the Easter Children's Parade. We also have the Tea Party. We also have just so many things. We have the usual dolphin skinning and the greasy pole and all of those competitions, but we have a lot of new elements as well. We have Bajan storytelling and a folk concert. We also have Pan in the Bay, which is a pan concert in the Bay Garden.
Ms. Thorne was speaking during the launch of the festival, which comes off from this Saturday, April 13th, and culminates over the Easter weekend. Flo is once again the title sponsor this year and handed over a $25,000 check to the organizing committee. Senior manager for the Southern Caribbean, Marlon Seeley, says they are pleased to be involved again.
In today's challenging economic climate, we are all well aware that it's no easy task to pull together the elements and to produce an event, a successful event of this magnitude. And as Barbados' leading telecommunications provider, Flow is committed to connecting the communities we serve. And we are always seeking new ways to develop innovative ideas that bring Barbadians closer together.
A 75-year-old legally blind champion sailor will sail solo around Barbados to raise funds for the Lions Eye Care Center at the Queen Elizabeth Hospital. He's Bill Tempro, and the veteran will be attempting the trip at the Sail for Sight charity event slated for October 13th.
I think I can do it. I'm sure I'm going to do it. And that sail from Deepwater Harbour to the yacht club, where we will finish, hopefully, with good conditions, we'll do it in 10 hours, 11 hours. Bad conditions, we're looking at 15 hours.
Well, a target of $500,000 has been set for the undertaking, with those proceeds going to the Lions Eye Care Center. Dr. Dawn Grosvenor explains the funds will help secure equipment for the facility.
The floor above the eye clinic is actually a surgical floor, which is not in use at present. And it is for that floor and to equip that floor that we're trying to raise funds with Sail for Sight. We have 10 specialists at the hospital, including myself, but this is a very simple math to do. We only have 5 operating days a week for 10 of us. That doesn't give us enough time to deal with the thousands, hundreds perhaps, of patients and surgeries that have to be done on a yearly basis.
The broadcasting fraternity in Barbados is mourning a loss. News has emerged that broadcaster and marketing executive Vioma Ali passed away earlier today after a brief illness. Ali worked at Starcom Network and more recently with Capital Media. The Barbados Association of Journalists and Media Workers, or BARJAM, has expressed shock and sadness at Vioma's passing. President Emmanuel Joseph says that she will be sorely missed for her broadcasting acumen and professional and articulate application in this medium. He expressed condolences to Ali's family, close friends and well-wishers on behalf of the Board of Directors of BARJAM and by extension the wider media fraternity. On to regional news now. With Jamaica under a flu alert, many Jamaicans are still not taking steps to get vaccinated. There have been reports of deaths from complications caused by the virus, and we have a report now from CVM TV.
The flu season appears to have gone into overtime with reports of lingering cases well beyond the regular October to March timeline. Word on the street is that many are not vaccinated against the possibly deadly virus.
I'm not sure about the H1N1 or the vaccination process, even though I have a flu now, which I have it for a while, but it's still not going away. So I'm going to drink some rum to like make it, you know?
In most cases, a lot of our children are not getting that from, they are very young, because you know that they get a lot of vaccines coming up which protect them from a lot of things in this big wide world. So I think if they push for it with that vaccine from the kids or at a younger stage, I think that will help the wider society.
I've always known about the flu vaccine. I think in our culture we didn't use it.
Flu vaccines are made to protect against 3 flu viruses. The influenza A H1N1 virus is one of them. Program Development Officer in the Family Health Unit of the Ministry of Health, Julia Rowe Porter, says that this vaccine should be given once per year. However, just 4,000 out of 2.7 million Jamaicans have received it.
For this year, the Ministry of Health purchased 21,900 doses for the season, and this is for adults and children, particularly in the high-risk groups. So it's not for the entire population. We really want to try to protect those that are most vulnerable.
She says that new vaccines are created before every flu season to fight the changing strain.
The vaccine that we have in stock now actually expires after the flu season in July this year.
An unusual accident has claimed the life of a U.S.-based Guyanese man in Florida. We get more in this report from HGP TV.
On Thursday afternoon, 72-year-old Deodat Prasad Ganga Prasad, originally of Wim, Quarantine Berbice, was killed when the blades of the rotor struck him.
As it was falling out of the sky, you could hear the blades turning, and it was really close, so like you can tell like something's going on. So I go out to look, and you can see the helicopter falling down. It tries to land on that patch of grass right there, but it's going too fast, and it slides across the road until it hits a pole. I didn't see anybody get out, but you could see all the debris from the wood of the pole flying everywhere.
According to Steve Gaskins, public information officer for the Florida Highway Patrol, the engine failed on a private helicopter with 2 occupants, and it crashed onto 50th Street at Palm River Road at about 2:20 p.m. A Chevrolet Silverado pickup truck was traveling north on 50th Street, approaching Palm River Road, when one of the blades struck the truck, killing Ganga Prasad. The driver of the pickup truck, his son, 35-year-old Ryan Anthony Prasad, was uninjured. The helicopter pilot, 39-year-old Bryant Thomas Messick, and co-pilot, 21-year-old Joshua James Wells, were also unharmed in the accident. The National Transportation Safety Board and the Federal Aviation Administration officials are currently investigating the incident.